Hello, I'm Matcha Green. Brief overview since this is my first video. In this series, I'm trying something new with Slay the Spire 2, where I cover the macro strategy and explain my decisions in a winning run. I describe myself as an intermediate player, and my main goal with this shorter form content is to help newer players overcome walls and highlight some cool interactions I come across. So going forward, remember that my choices are not always the top 1% most optimal ones, they're just the ones that worked for the context of the run. This is an Ironclad run on Ascension 1. To start, I picked a lava rock from these relics, mainly as a vibe pick. Ironclad gets early value from his base strikes due to bash, so I didn't feel the need to add a rare card that might be strong or transform a strike into something that might be better. Our routing plan is based around hitting these two elites with a campfire in between. For my opening cards, I went with Molten Fist since it had good synergy with bash, but mainly was used as a high damage card until later in the run. Anger for more damage and the idea of working around bash's 2 energy costs. And Havoc with the idea of thinning my deck so I can cycle the deck quicker for more angers. Here I pivoted to the shop since I decided removing a card was a bigger power spike for my anger than another card reward. In this case, I removed a strike instead of a defend to make sure I'm covered defensively. Picked up a Thunderclap in the next combat since I was looking for AoE cards, and this one also just happened to apply vulnerable. And immediately, I get value from the card in this elite encounter. Usually, I would like to have a game plan set up by the first elite. In this case, it was just anger spam, but that's a pretty good plan. Elite dropped a Vajra, which gives you 1 strength permanently, and I picked up a setup strike to add even more strength on top of it for the turns I have the card. Healed up in camp and picked up a Gremlin Horn, to which I, again, immediately got value by being able to conserve some HP in the next encounter with that card draw and free energy. Picked up an Inflame for more strength and it was time for the next elite. 78 damage on turn 3, not even worried. Bag of Marbles for more vulnerable debuffs, and a Headbutt to combo with Anger. Feeling pretty strong, so I'm aiming for that last elite. Picked up a Dominate, since it combos with my vulnerable cards. But I run into my first problem. Using a block potion here on my opening hand made me realize that my deck is a bit low on card draw or defense. So those cards are what I'll be looking out for next. Also took this massive 19 health hit, but that's okay because I have my blood potion. Razortooth is a nice pickup, but I skipped the cards here because it would clog up my deck and I can't get enough value out of them to justify the pickup. Luckily, Offering showed up in the next set of rewards and I picked it for its card draw, but I considered Stone Armor for some defense in my overly offensive deck. With the Blood Potion as my safety net, I upgraded Offering instead of healing, and we go into the boss of Act 1. I don't think I have the best micro, so I'm a bit reluctant to go in depth on it, but the game plan alongside mass-producing Angers now involves building vulnerable stacks with these cards and cashing out with Dominate for a modest amount of strength for our Angers and Strikes. Since Vulnerable also makes enemies take 50% more damage, our strikes do up to 24 damage by the end of the fight. The boss dropped a Horn Cleat, which provides us with the defense we're looking for, and a Bellows, which is nice to have. Since I thought the Offering was enough card draw for the deck, I took Fiend Fire as a high damage cash out after building up strength and vulnerable. Elite, Campfire, Elite. And I removed 2 strikes from my deck as thinning the deck provided a lot more of a power boost than the other 2 options. Grab a Stone Armor for defense, kill a Mantis in 2 turns, and an Iron Wave for its defense. I skipped Dominate because I felt like 1 was already enough, and I grabbed Expect a Fight with the idea of being able to get some extra energy to play my powers, or to play my whole hand after drawing my cards with Offering. A second Headbutt isn't a bad pickup, but I felt like Anger wasn't providing enough value for me to pick it up right now. Skip these since it clogged my deck. Next we have a big shop purchase. Punch Dagger allows me to slap Momentum 5 onto my Anger, which means it gains 5 damage every time I play it, and while it doesn't copy itself with the new damage number, it'll copy the enchantment, so we'll still have infinitely scaling Angers. Kinda wish I had that Headbutt, but it's in the past. We'll grab one more card removed before we head out. Upgraded stone armor to make sure my defense is up to par. And grabbing a mummified hand from this chest is great because we have powers we want to play as soon as possible for quicker deck cycles. Even though we build vulnerable stacks, I skip bully here since our damage is mainly coming from our strength stacks and our anger cycling. We also just run out of ways to build vulnerable pretty quickly. At this point, our build is pretty solidified. The core gameplay loop hasn't changed, it only got more efficient. The big highlight of Act 2 was picking up that punch dagger, as it prevented our anger from falling off, and refreshed it as our main offensive game plan. Rainbow Ring is a nice plus alongside Mummified Hand in our deck composition. I picked up Inflame here to get some value out of Rainbow Ring, but I honestly could have went without it. Rested right before the Act 2 fight, just in case. I misplayed it a little bit, but the deck was so strong at this point it wasn't an issue. Alright, so first things first, we're going to set up our vulnerable. And here we convert to strength. And then we play our powers for a bit more strength and some free cards. I could have used Fiendfire here for a lot of damage, but it's not our main win condition, and it wouldn't have killed. I didn't like the idea of exhausting key cards this early on while we haven't built up any angers. I continued our original game plan of pumping out as many angers as we could. With momentum 5 on them from the punch dagger, one of the last ones I played did 51 damage. That's a little more than double the amount of damage we were able to achieve by the end of Act 1. Picked up a Crimson Mantle to strengthen my defensive game plan, and we're off to Act 3. Ironclad here is a great pick since we're going to be playing a lot of zero cost angers, and we have a lot of extra sources of energy to be playing more cards during our turns. Taking this route for 2 elites and a later shop since our gold is low. Since adding a card to our deck effectively lowers its power level, I ended up skipping a lot of these choices since they don't really add anything to our synergies. Grab this Forgotten Soul because we want to exhaust our cards, and adding a card right now would be extremely detrimental to our deck, especially if it's a curse. In this shop, I definitely thought about this Sturdy Clamp and this Volley, but I believed in my defensive game plan, and I can tell you right now, I'm not lacking any damage. I grab a card removal. A bit sad about losing HP here, but I wasn't sad about losing another card from my deck. This is the last elite encounter before the boss, and I figured this might be a good time to break down the deck and summarize it before we enter the actual boss fight. The offensive momentum of the deck is based on debuffing the enemies with vulnerable cards and converting that vulnerability to strength with Dominate. From there, we take advantage of that strength with our 50 modified angers that we've generated using Headbutt and card draw or deck thinning utilities that increase how frequently we cycle our deck. And to make sure that we stay alive, our defensive coverage is provided through a few cards that generate block without using much energy. The biggest highlight since Act 2 was picking up that Iron Club I mentioned earlier. This enabled so much card draw, especially when using a Headbutt on Anger, as I was able to draw it on the same turn I put it back in my draw pile. After this elite encounter, I picked up a Vicious Plus. I felt like its extra card draw opportunity, alongside itself being a power, added a bit more value to this deck compared to all the other cards I skipped this act. Here we are at the final boss fight. I begin with playing the 2 powers to establish our defense and card draw utility. Even with the Mummified Hand relic, the beginning hand was quite weak, so I used my Cure All to draw some cards. Unfortunately, we were about 5 damage off from turn 1 kill, and I wouldn't have been able to proc that letter opener, which I didn't mention earlier because our deck is mainly attacks. I block up and save my Dominate for a better opportunity in the future. A turn 2 offering to draw our very important Bash and Molten Fist combo, which also allowed us to fish for Dominate using the upgraded Vicious we played earlier. I didn't really do the math here for the damage, but thankfully our letter opener gave us that last hit of damage to finish stage 1. Open stage 2 with Expect to Fight for energy, and our Iron Club draws 1. Bash to draw again. Headbutt combo. Iron Wave procs Iron Club to draw more. Thunderclap procs Vicious, 2 more cards. Havoc to thin the deck, and it counts as 2 cards, so Ironclad draws 1 more card. And the letter opener actually kills stage 2, which procs Gremlin Horn, which draws even more. But I didn't even realize it was dead, so I couldn't play any of these cards. Such a hypnotizing loop once the combo gets started. Stage 3 opens with a turn of Intangible, which means it can only take a maximum of 1 damage per attack this turn. I pretty much turned my brain off at this point, which is not a good habit to have. Use my blood potion here for safety. I definitely should have used my Fiend Fire here to get out of my deck. Another intangible turn, so I'm just scaling. Then they add some silly little cards to clog my deck, which is quite serious to be honest, but I had too much damage and too much card draw to care. Yep, and that's GG's. Since I'm pretty new to making videos, please let me know if any segments seem unnecessary or over-explained or under-explained. Thanks for watching.